Hello everyone, Jesse Webb, Traders Pro. Market conditions, bearish in a bull market. We are at extremes all over the place though, so let's talk about that this morning. We are seeing definitely massive acceleration to the downside. We're starting to see this trend now that's starting to slope down and pointing lower. We've got the overall rank of the bull market now sitting at 11, which is still pretty up there in terms of the extension of these trends. We see them reach extremes to the bottom, extremes to the top. They usually will overshoot one direction or the other. Now what we're watching to see is if we find any support right here, even though we're starting to trend back down, whether this is just a counter trend, this trend direction, counter trend, more upside, or whether or not this is the trend direction, this is counter trend, and this is the new direction. We're right at kind of a critical point in the market right here on the overall direction. So we'll continue to watch that pretty closely. But we are sitting at a pretty massive support area, and S&P 500, you can see just this range right here. I'll go into the other chart here in just a minute, but we're sitting right here at this 414, 410 area. We've got momentum all the way to the extreme to the downside. We've also got breadth all the way extreme to the downside. And we actually have sentiment here in this upper range buy zone. These are good bullish conditions right here, at least reversal or a bounce type conditions, not necessarily a continuation or the beginning of anything. It certainly could be, but we're at an area that we're oversold enough that we could start to see a recovery type of a rally or recovery bounce right here. Buy sell ratio also, we've ticked down to 0.10. We were at 1.2 and then 1.1, 1.3. We were 1.09. So we're hovering around that 0.10 or less area, and that's just an unsustainable location in this upper area where we typically get some kind of a reversal back. These two lines will start to work their way back together again. Again, this halfway point when we have red that's above green, that is a buy-sell ratio of 1 right here on this bottom line. If I were to draw a line all the way across, you can see that anytime this line is less than that 1 area here, then it corresponds to this red being above green. If we have green above red, then we have a buy-sell ratio of 1. So anything less than this 1 line means that bears are in control. Okay, and that's the overall trend of the market. We can use the buy-sell ratio as additional bias when we're looking at the market and saying, which direction do I want to be focusing on? Do I want to be focusing on stocks that I think are going higher, or something that is going to be lower? Do I want to be in cash? Do I want to be trying to trade anything bearish, some aggressive type strategies to the downside? One of the strategies we've talked about is when you have a buy-sell ratio of less than 1, which is essentially, again, the red, all of the red up above the green, everything's above, everything is moving less than 1. The buy-sell ratio is less than 1. Then one of the great scans to be able to use for downside is on the muscle scans, and then this weakling scan right here. We often get stocks that are trending lower and they counter trend back up and they just continue that overall downtrend. That's an area, so you'll have this bearish profile where we are primarily focusing on this bullish profile. When we have stocks that are moving this direction, moving higher, the weekly scan will actually look for stocks that are in this downtrend, and so you can see they'll move lower. Maybe they'll counter trend back up. They'll move lower. This is a good example of that. Lower, just continually trending lower. Any attempt to move higher, it starts to break down as things are moving weaker. That's a great scan to be able to look for stocks that are moving to the downside. I wouldn't do that right at these levels right here, just because we are so extreme to the downside. We may see some more upside, but this is a great pattern even as an example to look for. We're looking counter trend up with that new signal to the downside. And again, these are position type trades where the holding time frame might go from anywhere from 4 or 5 days out to 2 or 3 months. Typically the signals, we get about 3 to 4 signals per year on a stock. So if you're looking at downtrends, you can see here, this is just a 6-month time frame. And on this stock, you've got one all the way back here. Let me grab the right pointer guy. Where did I go? Here it is. All the way back here. Here's another one here. Here's another one here. At least going, in this case, going from up to down. That's whereas on the uptrends, we're looking for stocks that are going from a retracement down back to up. Anyway, let me go back to kind of digress there a little bit, but that's what we're looking for. We've also got sentiment right at the extreme. This is S&P 500. We've got NASDAQ, which actually is at the lowest point, lower than the previous low. We've also been talking about bonds. Bonds have bounced and starting to move higher. The T-notes, same. T-notes have actually been rallying right here, so we are seeing a little bit of a tick up here on bonds. Let's look at that other perspective that we've been focusing on with TLT. Nothing super impressive yet, but let's see if we go to here. Thursday, Friday, a little bit of support on that, which we certainly want to be able to see. And SHY is the other one. Now, recall that any of the charts that I'm going through, any of the charts that I focus on, I am focusing on ETFs. So anything that we look at is tradable. SHY is tradable. TLT is tradable. So if we're looking at bonds, if we're looking at interest rates, if we're looking at oil, if we're looking at gold, we're looking at the ETF. So it's something that you could actually trade in your stock portfolio, and just to make it easy and be able to make it tradable, so we're not having to deal with futures or anything like that. Just to simplify the overall ability to be able to make these trades. Let's jump back. So we're sitting at sentiment at the lows, buy-sell ratio at the lows. The sector scan, we certainly are in this downtrend. Again, everything's to the downside. Utilities have been leading. We've had a handful, 4 or 5 utilities that have really popped in this last week or two. Some of the stocks to consider today: MSNO, or at least in this uptrend, moving higher, had a real big solid move higher, is holding right around that momentum zone, that 236 range here. We'll see if it continues to find any support and start to move higher. It's got some nice fundamentals here as well. It's had a big run this last year, 200 or 300% to the upside. So it's got the ability to really have some momentum to it. Let's refresh here and go to this scan, the new buy list, MNSO. PLX, that's not the one that I want to look at. Let me just go here and here, and IQ. So some of these are retracing. They're not in that upper momentum zone. Here's a medical stock that is an ADR, ACHM, had a gap higher on the upper momentum zone range as well, and continuing to move in that overall direction. Let's have a couple of, that's a pretty big pop. This BLFB, BELFB electronics. Again, these are not fantastic. It's a gold stock, EGO. This is one that, keep an eye on gold. These stocks are starting to move. A lot of them are in these trends where they're trying to break out and get back up in this upper zone. A lot of them look just like this, where they've had this long move here now. They've retraced off of the lows, and they're starting to break back up onto this 1-year time frame momentum. And there are a handful. And if you want a quick look at those, you can go to sectors and simply go to basic materials right here, and then look at gold. These gold stocks are 7. There's a bunch lined up in this hold range, though, so you can keep an eye on some of those that are just about to move. GFI, we'll go ahead and look at some of these on a 6-month time frame here. So a lot of them still have that 6-month downturn, but they've got a 1-year uptrend, and they're really trying to continue to move higher, but they haven't had that big move yet, that big confirmation move to get it back up into that buy zone, but they're retracing. You can see this pullback here on HMY, uptrend, counter trend, support, almost in that momentum zone. Could see some continuation on a lot of these for gold stocks, so keep your eye on those this week. That'll do it for today's update. If you don't have full access to the site and software, you can sign up with the link below. We look forward to having you. Have a great day today.